Greetings, Guardians. My name is Bife here. Boy, did I get a ton of people asking me about this one. This week in the lore, we had one hell of a lore entry drop. After a year of Savathun essentially taking Osiris hostage, after her death and then resurrection at our own hands, and after she used us to accomplish her own ends of weakening Xivu Arath, it looks like the Witch Queen has finally met her match, in the form of Saint 14. Today we're going to talk about how Saint 14 took it upon himself to get revenge and to kill a god, and succeeded not once, but 10 times in quick succession. It is a remarkable story that we'll be talking about today. So all this really starts in this week's lore entry that we get from one of the radio entries. This is in the Rites of Passage lorebook, and it's the Proportionality entry, and I'm going to jump into reading it right away. This is from the perspective of Savathun after she has made her peace with us, and after she has been resurrected from Eris slaying her so that she could claim her power. Savathun flew heavily through the shifting skies of her throne world. She struggled to build speed. Her wings seemed frustratingly stiff following her resurrection. She felt slow and uncoordinated, as if her body was not yet entirely her own. She frowned and drifted to the side, favoring her right, and did not see the spinning disk of void energy until it caught her low in the thorax and sent her tumbling to the ground. There was a terrible noise, a flash of purple metal, and then it was over. Imaru materialized in a burst of light. He looked down at Savathun and then up to Saint 14, who stood over her body. "Already?" Imaru muttered in disbelief. Saint's face was hidden beneath his helmet. The lavender ribbons on his armor swayed and trailed with each heavy breath. It took him a moment to acknowledge the ghost. "I heard you were in Vanguard custody," Saint said. "I'm not a prisoner," Imaru sniffed. "More like an insurance policy. Anyway, I could sense something happened, and Eris let me come down and check it out." Saint nodded, his focus still on Savathun. "Something happened, yes," he said, and nudged the pile of broken chitin and crumpled wings with his boot. Imaru hovered close to Savathun. "I'm not even gonna ask," he said, while channeling his light. Savathun rose to her knees. She took a raspy breath, opened her eyes, and found Saint. She smiled. Saint stopped her. Imaru flew into Saint's face. "All right," he shouted. "You've made your point." Saint wiped the steaming ichor from his visor with a thumb and gestured to Savathun's remains. "Again," he said pointedly. "Yeah, I don't think so," Imaru replied and initiated his transmat. Saint suddenly flared with void energy. He threw his palms out to his sides, and a violet Ward of Dawn dome burst from him. Imaru felt it ripple through him like a pressure wave, disrupting his transmission. He bobbed unsteadily. He was unable to see, but he could feel. And now Saint's armored hand gripped him so tightly that a hairline split ran through his shell. "You will bring her back," Saint said. "I'm getting a little tired of you people threatening to kill me," Imaru said into the muffled void. Saint's fist loosened by a fraction. "You will bring her back, and I will give my word that you and she will both leave when I am finished." "When you're finished?" Imaru echoed, and he felt Saint release him. He sensed for Savathun's form, hidden in the blackness. He grimaced, focused his light, and Savathun began to rise once more. "Savathun," Saint said, and killed her. A quick little note and addendum: there are deliberate paragraph breaks between each of these lines, and it seems as though the sentences are incomplete. I am making an assumption here, but it seems as though between each of these lines, which are incomplete, Saint is killing Savathun and having her resurrected every time. This means, with this count of lines, that Savathun is killed by Saint 14 a minimum of 10 times. Here's his full speech to her. "Savathun," Saint said, and killed her. "You are very new to resurrection as a light bearer. In the beginning, there is a weakness when you first come back. Like waking from a deep sleep, from a coma. That is why I can best you. You are still unsteady. You are Hive, and you know suffering. You come from death. It is nothing to you. But I think, maybe, you do not know how it feels to be helpless. I will teach you." After a long, long time, Saint was finished. The dome vanished, exposing the Exo, the Ghost, and the God to the murky throne world sky. Saint slowly keyed his transport request and removed his helmet. As he transmatted out, he looked once more at Savathun. "This was not for Osiris," he said, his voice hoarse and ragged. "This was for me." When Saint returned home, Osiris met him at the door. "You were gone for a while. That must have been quite the patrol," he said. "Are you hungry?" And Saint 14, the greatest Titan who ever lived, fell into his open arms and wept. I can't even begin to imagine the pain that Saint 14 has been through, watching your significant other being twisted and controlled by a force beyond your grasp, standing by their side as they were in a coma for months and months, and then having to watch the monster who caused it all walk freely. The closest phrase I can muster to describe it is that it sounds like a miscarriage of justice, and even that seems too distant and too cold to really summarize the pain of what happened. Of course, Saint 14 was unable to kill Savathun for the longest time. He either didn't know, as was first the case, that her schemes were even in place and that she was holding Osiris hostage. In the time when she was alive during Witch Queen, Saint 14 was by Osiris's side, watching over him. It was down to us to obtain vengeance for the couple. Now, with Savathun returned into the world and Osiris being safe, Saint 14 would have had his perfect opportunity to kill the Witch Queen on his own terms, and to kill her for good. I can only imagine how much more it must have stung, knowing that the terms of the continued existence of humanity and all other life in the universe rested upon the ceasefire between the Guardians and the Witch Queen. The thing that shocks me most about this lore entry is perhaps this. The writing in this lore book almost seems to make it seem as though Savathun didn't necessarily see Saint coming. For a god of cunning and lies and deception being in the heart of her own throne world, well, that is surprising, especially considering that it's Savathun. It does make me wonder something rather grim, which is that perhaps, even with all the description in the book, Savathun foresaw this moment. Saint 14 is perhaps one of the greatest Guardian combatants that we've ever seen in the history of the Tower, but I still think that Savathun may have foreseen this. After all, her first response, seemingly, was to gloat. It's worth remembering, though, that this is unclear. After all, at the time of the initial attack, Savathun seems more concerned with her stiff flying posture than any danger that might assail her. It's wholly uncharacteristic of the Witch Queen to be so unprepared, but it's worth remembering that she lost some of her power when Eris Morn killed her and banished her sister. And as Saint 14 said, she is new to Guardian Resurrection. Prior to catching Saint's shield mid-flight, she'd only died twice before, once at the hands of Eris Morn, and once at our own. I also think that if we're going to discuss this lore entry, we need to discuss another that pairs with it. A lore entry from the same book from the start of the season that I actually didn't get to cover. It's called Process, and it's where Saint 14 and Osiris literally discuss the potential return of Savathûn. If you focus closely, you'll understand the importance of Saint's words to Savathûn all the more. Saint 14 and Osiris sat across from each other at the rough wooden table, focused on the array of wires, struts, and braces spread out before them. Mithrax had mentioned that his splicer gauntlet had been causing his arm to go numb, and Saint's over-eager offer of assistance had turned into an evening of frustratingly meticulous tinkering. Mithrax had politely excused himself hours ago, but Saint and Osiris were so focused on their discussion of Savathûn's bargain, they hardly noticed. "We don't have a choice," Osiris said, threading a wire through the lacy frills of a tiny ether converter. "The future the Witness is crafting beyond that portal is more terrible than we could dream. Anything is preferential to that." "Anything but her," Saint grumbled. "Even her," Osiris said defiantly. "If Savathûn knows how to pursue the Witness, and there is little reason to doubt that she does, we must work with her. There is no other way." With an Exo's patient precision, Saint straightened a row of metal pins. "I do not know how you can say that, after everything." Osiris raised his eyebrows. "I am a beacon of forgiveness," he said, but the words soured on his tongue. "So, you forgive her?" Saint didn't need to look up from his work. "No," Osiris said quietly. He aligned a metal tab with its slot and pressed it into place, waiting to hear a click. It didn't come. "The truth is," Osiris said, "I hardly think of her at all." Saint looked at him flatly, but Osiris shrugged, his face open. "I know how it sounds. I have acknowledged what happened and moved on, I suppose. I am here, alive, with you. They say that's the best revenge, don't they?" Saint coiled a stubborn spring and prepared to slide it into a support brace. "Is it revenge to allow the Violator to avoid accountability?" "The Violator is dead," Osiris said wryly. "And will live again if Eris and the Guardians fulfill this prophecy or prediction," the spring shot from between Saint's fingers, "or whatever Savathûn wants to call this new trick." Osiris heard the spring clatter in the corner near the kitchen and rose wordlessly to hunt for it. Saint sighed. "I do not know how you can be so calm," he said. "I remember it all," he said softly, without turning away from the corner. "I remember being helpless." The words caught in his throat. Saint pushed his chair back and stood, but Osiris was already back at the table, a dusty spring in the center of his palm. "There is still fury inside me," he said. "Fury that I will probably carry forever. I acknowledge it, but I do not let it consume me. I control it, and I take strength from that." Osiris placed the spring on the table and sat back down. Saint moved to his side. "Denying your emotions is not strength," Saint said carefully. "I admit that if I could, I'd change what happened. But not if doing so changed where it led me." Osiris reached out and gave Saint a half embrace around the hips. "Have we finished talking about this now?" Osiris asked, and Saint heard the rawness in his voice. Saint kissed the top of Osiris's head and sat back down. It would have to be enough. Osiris described his time in the clutches of the Witch Queen as a time that made him feel helpless, and that is exactly how Saint desired the Witch Queen to feel. The two have been dealt pain that may stay with them for the rest of their days. Now that the Witch Queen has returned, the monster that haunted the lovers has been granted reprieve to walk free again. Saint might not have found justice, but at least for now, he has tasted an iota of revenge. And whilst it is not enough, for the time being, that will have to be enough. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, go ahead and leave your thoughts down below in the comments section. And if you want more Destiny content, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. On heavier topics like this, I always struggle asking for likes, but considering the fact that Saint 14 gave Savathun the epic beatdown that she deserved, I think that it's fair to say that you can go ahead and leave a like as you see fit. Also, it's worth remembering one tiny extra detail. I said that Saint may have killed Savathun 10 times there, but it says that a long time passed. Who knows how many times she actually died at Saint's hands before she was ultimately left to her own devices. All that being said though, that's for you to speculate on in the comments section. And of course know that, as always, your viewership is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime my name is Bife. Parodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.